Okay, we are live. Here we go. Can I have a quick thumbs up that my sound is coming through clear on your end? All right, welcome to our live Q&A session. My name is Eric Edmeades. I'm the founder of WildFit, and I'm really excited to be doing this. I want to give you a little bit of background on why it's happening, and that is that we had some webinars taking place, and in the middle of one of them, it just crashed, like right as we were going to start doing the Q&A. And quickly my team said, hey, why don't you just launch a quick Facebook Live? So we just launched a quick Facebook Live and sent the numbers, sent the link out, and all these people joined. But the challenge was, now that it was Facebook Live, it was open to the public. And so then we had all these people going, well, wait a minute, how come you didn't tell us you were going to do that? You should have warned us. We would have been there for the whole thing. And so we decided what we would do is schedule an official, just straight up Q&A session. So here we are, open Q&A. And we're going to do Q&A in a couple of different ways. We're going to do Q&A in that we have questions that many of you submitted with your original registration. So I've got lots and lots of questions here on this screen that I'm going to be going to, but also I'm going to go to you guys for questions. And so what I'll probably do is try and alternate a little bit, but ultimately, if you've got a question that you have for me, then you just got to try and catch my attention. Now, I've got many screens of people, so I will flick through them from time to time. For example, Karen, I see you there, and Pam, I see you twiddling your fingers and saying hello. So I can see, just not Matthew, it's so good to see you. It's really, I can't see everybody at once, but as I flick through the screens, if I see you kind of waving, then I can unmute you, and then you can just ask your question live. And when I don't see somebody waving, then I have two options. The one is I'll go to the pre questions that we received with registration, or as many of you know, as clients of mine, I'll just nominate you anyway, because if you're here, then you're here. All right. So let's do a little bit of background, because I recognize some familiar faces, and I know that many of you are very familiar with WildFit. Many of you are actually clients of ours. Some of you are not. And so I'm going to give you just a tiny little background on WildFit. WildFit is effectively a collection of information and methodologies that sort of combine what we call nutritional anthropology and behavioral change psychology. So by helping people improve their nutrition and change their behaviors, we can help them create both significant and lasting changes in their overall lifestyle and in their health and their experience of life. And WildFit's been a passion of mine for about 20 years. It only officially got named about 4 or 5 years ago. And when we launched our first structured coaching programs, and frankly, we were blown away by the results that we got with people. And, it just started to grow and grow and grow. And I had a fascinating conversation with my accountant, who happens also to be my wife. And she came to me one day and said, of all the programs that we run all over the world, all the business stuff, all the marketing stuff, she says, we put no marketing and no effort into WildFit, and yet it's growing faster and more profitable than the other sides of the business. I said, what? I was like, this is amazing, because it had always been my biggest passion, but I'd had a limiting belief, I think, about people's willingness to actually invest in their health. And so I didn't see it really as a viable business. And as it's turned out, it really is. In fact, I can tell you, we posted over 1,000% growth last year over the previous year, which was a very okay year too. And that is entirely because our clients have gone out there and magnified us to the world. So it just gives you a little bit of background on WildFit and where we are today. What we're going to do today is take questions of any kind, of any nature. Now, mostly, you'll probably find most of the questions are related to specifically to diet and health, but WildFit is also, really focused on generally this one core theory. And this will be new to some of you who have really been only focused on the food side of WildFit, but one of my core sort of theories of life is that almost all the pain and suffering that we endure psychologically, the things that we find difficult to live with, the things that cause us stress and fear and anxiety and anger and resentment and so on, almost all of that emotional discomfort comes from one thing, and that is a nervous system, a collection of instincts and a physiology that evolved in one era, and then a society that moved more quickly than our evolution ever could. And so as a consequence, with food, for example, our nervous system did not evolve to live in a time and a place where there was an abundance of low nutrition food lying around us all the time. We evolved in a time when food was rare. And you can cross this stuff over into parenting and and the way television entertainment works. And it really is a fascinating science. So we're going to just take any old questions that people have about this. And I'm going to start with one of the, actually, it's quite a common one that we get, but it's right here. And I think it deals with some of the banners that some of you guys have seen in coming into our into this webinar or into other programs of ours. And that is that we say, hey, every species on Earth has a diet and has an ideal diet, and Homo sapiens should not be an exception to that rule. Now, so let's talk about that, because somebody says, hey, what's our diet supposed to be? And we hear contradictory things all the time. Some people say we should eat meat. Some people say we shouldn't. Some people say we should eat wheat. Some people say we shouldn't, and so on. So that is obviously a conversation we could have for an hour or 2 hours, or as some of you know, for 3 months or more, right? It's a conversation that kind of is ongoing. But I'm going to give you a little bit of background. And the background is that when I say that every species on Earth has a diet and Homo sapiens is no different, I want to be very clear that I recognize that there are some differences, and we're going to talk a little bit about those. But at the core, here's what we're really talking about. What we're really talking about is that, you know, the example I often use at live events is like elephants, for example. We know what an elephant's diet is. An elephant's diet is to eat 200 kilograms or 400 or 500 pounds of leaves and bark and grass, and that's what there's, and fruit, and that's their diet, and 70 liters of water, right? So we know that that's, you know, nutritionally, that's their diet, that's their lifestyle. We also know that when we take them off that diet and we put them in zoos and circuses and we feed them hay and all the other stuff, then they die and they get ill and what have you. And so when they're on their diet, they're happy. And when they're off their diet, they're not so happy. And we know, for example, that the cheetah, the fastest land animal, I don't know if you guys get this, but a cheetah can do 0 to 60 in miles or 0 to 100 in kilometers at just about the same speed as a Tesla. Just think about that, right? I mean, they're fast. They're super fast. And they've evolved to this incredible pinnacle of evolutionary brilliance. You know, little things like they don't have collarbones. They don't have collarbones, so they can turn really, really fast when they're running. Have you noticed they have those tear marks on their face? You know, they're beautiful makeup. They have the most gorgeous makeup of all the cats. Those tear marks evolved for the same reason that American football players put the black stuff under their eyes, because it stops the sun from glinting off their cheeks and messing up their eyesight. Well, if you're a cheetah and you're running along at 60, 70 miles per hour, 100 plus kilometers an hour, and the sun suddenly glints off you and you lose a split second, that could be bad. And so they've evolved this. Now, we know that their diet is made up of about 2.5 kilograms or 5 pounds of fresh meat on a daily basis, or as often as they're successful hunting. Notice I said fresh meat. They're not like a hyena. A hyena will happily eat fresh meat or very unfresh meat, not the cheetah. They won't even eat fresh meat that was killed 5 minutes ago. They have to actually kill it themselves. That's their diet. That's what they want. And so it's very, and a leaf cutter ant, come on, does anybody know what a leaf cutter ant eats? What do you think? It's not leaves. It isn't leaves. They don't eat leaves. They collect the leaves, and then they bring the leaves back home, and then they use the leaves to farm, and they have these aphids that they keep. They're agriculturalists. They have a very different diet. And what I want to suggest to you is that Homo sapiens, we, as much as we may look a little bit different, you know, from each other, there's different races and different heights, and you've got the Northern European blonde thing, and you've got the, you know, Southern European dark hair, dark skin thing, and then you've got the African thing and the Asian thing and so on. We have different appearances, but we're ultimately Homo sapiens, and we're actually very closely related genetically. And so when I say that there's an ideal human diet, here's what I'm really saying. I'm saying that there are some nutritional requirements that are consistent across human beings. We all need vitamin C. We all need calcium, iron. We all need certain fats. There are some nutritional constituents that are consistent, that are consistently required by human beings. And there are food processing capabilities that are relatively consistent for human beings. And there are some differences in here. For example, some people are hypersensitive to wheat and some people are not. And some people are super sensitive to milk and some people are not. And of course, there's people all in the middle. So what we're dealing with is that we have fundamentally the same nutritional needs, but we do have some different sensitivities. And so to really now answer the question, and I'll answer the rest of them shorter than this one, but to answer the ultimate question that was being asked, is that it appears in terms of the archaeological record, in terms of what we can see of people in Africa, the Hadza Bushmen, the Kung Bushmen, it appears that our legacy has involved eating a diet that has been made up of seasonal fruits and vegetables, meat, of course, you know, healthy, low fat, not ethically farmed, but just wild meat, fish, nuts, root vegetables. I mean, honey, these seem to be the things that have made the story of our nutritional anthropology, our history. And what I would suggest is the degree to which we can move in that direction, now we can deal with all kinds of the challenges that people are now physically. Let's remember that 100 years ago, or even 150 years ago or so, that heart disease, I don't even think was in the top 10 in terms of the top 10 causes of death. And neither was cancer. But now those two occupy 66% of all death in America, in the Western world. 66%. Oh, and by the way, we know the vast majority of those two diseases are actually lifestyle caused. And so that's what this mission here is all about. So what I'm going to do now is I do have a list of all the pre-asked questions. I'm going to get to as many of those as we can. And I want to take live questions from people as well, because that'll make it a lot more interactive and fun. So if you have a live question, then what I would suggest is, like I said, you can either put one in the chat down here below on your bottom right-hand side, or you can just wave your hands frantically and I'll try and find you, and then I'll take your question. In the absence of you waving your hands, then I will turn to questions that I have that you guys submitted originally in your registration. So does anybody have a live question to start things off? I am going to say this. This happens all the time, where for some reason we go into webinar mode and we have a circumstance where it's like, it feels like a TV show. It's not. We're here. This is more like a Skype call. We can talk to each other. So if you've got a question, go ahead and let me know. Roy, I've got you. I'm going to come to you in a minute. And the rest of you, hey, let's interact together. And I will get to the questions you submitted in advance. So Roy, you are unmuted. Go ahead. Yes.
The question I have is actually about the affiliate program. I'm in Germany. Can I?
I'm not getting sound.
Eric, it's Andrea. I can hear Roya. Go ahead.
Oh, there it is. It's I've got it. Roya, go ahead.
Okay. So it's about the affiliate program. I'm in Germany and I want to know, is it the same to join your program or Yvonne's, or?
Yvonne's is not integrated into our affiliate system because of the German language issues. We are working in that direction. But for now, I would work directly with Yvonne for German market clients.
No, but I could also join your program.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely you can. Cool.
Great.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Now, I am going to go to, I've got Jane. I don't know if you're with us here live, Jane. I got your registration, and your question was, do we need to eat fruit on an empty stomach? I can't believe that our ancestors denied themselves fruit when they came across it if they'd already eaten something else. This is I love this question, by the way. And I love it because what it means is you've done exactly what I did in really formulating a lot of what's going on with WildFit. You got in a time machine in your head, you went back and you looked at it, the reality of it. And yes, the reality of it is that if you and I, Jane, are walking along in the bush in Africa and we've just eaten and we stumble upon a tree with some fruit in it, there's every chance we would go ahead and eat that. What I want to suggest, let's do this answer in two parts. First of all, fruit is unique among foods. What I mean by that is that the vast majority of foods don't want to be eaten. Vegetables have all kinds of biochemical defenses against getting eaten. They have physical defenses like thorns and bitter tastes and tannins that they can summon up into the acacia tree, for example. When antelopes start nibbling at the acacia tree, it sends out a pheromone to all the other acacia trees that says, hey, the antelopes are here. Start sending tannin into your leaves to make them less palatable. So vegetables and plants fundamentally don't want to be eaten. Animals and fish and living, well, animals, they don't want to be eaten. And nuts, they really don't want to be eaten. They cover themselves up in a shell to protect themselves. Fruit, on the other hand, kind of wants to be eaten, as long as you don't eat the seed, right? Because the reason the fruit kind of wants to be eaten is that what it's hoping for is that you're going to eat it and that you are going to transport it, right? You're going to eat it and then you're going to transport it. So in essence, like most seeds have a transportation system. You know, you've got those little helicopter ones and the burrs and, you know, and the ones that float on the wind and so on. Well, fruit is another transportation system. The deal is eat the fruit, transport the seed, drop the seed somewhere else, either because you didn't eat it and threw it, or because you let it pass through you and you let it out. And then that plant gets to germinate somewhere away from the parent plant where it doesn't have to compete with the parent plant. Now, in order for this deal to work, we can't damage the seeds. And the seeds all have different ways also of defending themselves. So some of you will be, you know, my age or older, where you'll remember what it was like to bite into a grape seed. Many of you that are younger, they've GMO'd the grapes, so there's no seeds in them anymore. But the fact is that, how many of you guys can remember what it was like to bite into a grape seed? Yeah, and show me the facial expression of biting into a grape seed. That's the one, right? And then how long is it before you make that mistake again? No time soon. The next time you put a grape in your mouth, you're kind of like, I'm not gonna chew all the way, right? And so the grape is trying to say, hey, the deal is you can have the nice flesh, but don't mess with the seed. The seed wants to become a plant. Strawberries deal with it a different way. They put hundreds of little seeds around the outside. They're so tiny, it's really unlikely that you're gonna crush them. Even if you do, you're only gonna crush a few. And at the end of the day, the strawberries come out the backside. Now, here's the thing though. If the seeds, once ingested, had to pass all the way through your digestive system in real time, the way most food does, most of the seeds would get destroyed by your stomach acids. So fruit has evolved to be almost like pre-digested. It wants to pass through you super quickly. And so it works best when we eat it and we don't leave it sitting in our stomach. And to answer your second part of your question, yes, it's entirely possible. You and I, we've been out hunting. Maybe we just had some meat. Maybe we just found a bunch of root vegetables and we're quite full. And so we stumble upon some ripening fruit. Yeah, it's quite possible that we'd eat it. But what I would put to you is, it's also quite possible that when we did that the first time, it would have given us some heartburn. And we would have quickly created a dissociation that when we feel full in our stomach, we don't want to eat that food. So I can't say for certain that that's the case, but what I'm suggesting is that generally speaking, our stomachs prefer to eat fruit on an empty stomach, and that when we don't, it can often trigger things like gas and heartburn, and basically kind of mess up everything else that's in your stomach. I will tell you that when I first became a food crank, that's what my dad used to call me. When I first became a food crank, I told him a bunch of stuff about diet, and he told me that I was so open-minded there was a breeze blowing in there. And he wasn't open to any of it. He didn't want to hear a thing, right? And then, you know, he had a heart attack. And his dad had also died very young. So, you know, and my dad always believed he was going to die very young. My dad, by the way, today is super healthy, in his 70s, rocking the world. You know, the whole dying young plan got abandoned. But he did have a heart attack really young. And after he had a heart attack, he called me up one day and he goes, Eric, you know this whole fruit on an empty stomach thing? And I go, yeah. And he goes, you might be right about that. And it's like, what do you mean? He goes, look, it's not the easiest thing for a parent to call their child and say that they're learning something from their child. I'm just saying you might not be as wrong as I thought you were. And I'm like, well, what happened? And he goes, well, after the heart attack, a couple of weeks later, I had chest pains and I called my nurse. Luckily, he was dating his nurse, so, you know, he had instant access. And I called my nurse, and my nurse said, well, before you take your pills, you know, because he was saying, hey, I've got chest pain, should I take the pills? She said, before you take the pills, why don't you tell me what you ate today? And he goes, well, I had a healthy meal. I had brown rice and, you know, some lean fish and some vegetables. And then I had an orange for dessert. And she said, well, you can't do that. And he said, well, why not? And he goes, well, because really you should eat fruit on an empty stomach. And now that he heard it from somebody with like, you know, a piece of paper and an education in that area, he was way more open-minded to things. I will tell you incidentally, and he would be happily to tell you as well, he and I have had calls like that repeatedly ever since, and it's become a family joke. He calls, okay, Eric, this is the last time I'm going to say that you were right about something about food, but the calls continue. So I hope that answers the question. I'm going to go to a next one here. Tanya says, why is alcohol bad to drink? Hey, now I didn't say that. I want to be really clear. I didn't say that. That question would not be allowed in a court of law because or in an American court of law. It would be allowed in a Swedish court of law, by the way, because in Sweden, you're allowed to build statements into your question. So your question is, alcohol is bad to drink. Why? I'm not saying alcohol is bad to drink. I choose not to have it, nothing to do with WildFit. I just woke up one day with a terrible hangover and I made that deal with God that so many people make and I kept it. That's the deal. That's all that happened. I was 21 years old. I drank too much. I woke up feeling like really bad and I just decided that I would stop having alcohol. I never had a problem with it. I've probably been drunk less than 20 times in my life. I just stopped. Now, that said, I don't think alcohol is particularly good for us, right? Now you understand the distinction. Let's say there's things that are really, really bad and there's things that are really, really necessary. And then there's things in the middle. And my view is that alcohol is one of those things that, you know, taken with some level of responsibility can be one of those things that's in the middle and can have a nice social role in life and what have you. And so WildFit is not about telling people they should never have alcohol anymore. We have a season during which you should avoid alcohol because you're trying to achieve certain physiological goals inside your body. But that's a season of no alcohol. We have many clients that have happily done the program and they've gone through the season without alcohol. And many of them have at the end of that said, you know, I don't know if I'm going to go back to alcohol. And others have gone back and that's absolutely fine. Generally, the challenges that I have with alcohol is it definitely falls into the category of processed food. It's also fermented. And while people will argue that humans have eaten fermented food in the past, I would say that it was not a common thing. I mean, yes, okay, some fruit fell off the tree. And if other animals didn't get to it first and we got there and it was rotting and we were starving, would we eat it? You know, maybe, but I'm telling you something, it doesn't smell very nice, right? It doesn't taste very nice. It warns us, don't do this. So I am not a big fan. I'm a big fan of us fermenting stuff in our stomachs naturally, which we're supposed to do. I'm not a big fan of us taking in lots of fermented food. So I don't believe alcohol is such a good thing. In the meantime, I also think it makes digestion somewhat difficult. And oh, you guys, I usually don't get off color until after. Is it after 8 o'clock p.m. for any of you? I need to know. Is it after 8 o'clock? Raise your hand if it's after 8 p.m. I need at least one person where it's after 8 p.m. Oh, okay, Sue. Well, see, because when I'm at my live seminars, often my censorship drops down when it goes after 8 p.m. and my humor gets a little more questionable. So I'm going to pretend it's after 8. And I will say this about alcohol, that I saw this comedian once saying to his friend, he's like, I don't really understand your relationship with alcohol. Why do you enjoy it so much? And he says, well, because alcohol like magnifies my personality. And the guy says, yeah, but what if you're an asshole? So there's my off-color joke for the day. We'll leave it at that. My wife wasn't here. She wouldn't like that. So that's my answer on alcohol. My next question, by the way, am going to run through the written questions unless and until I see you waving your hand. You wave your hand or you're right on the side here, then I'll jump in and ask your questions. But in the meantime, I'm going to go through these that I have here. So the question I've got right now is, why are gluten-free crackers still unhealthy? Okay, again, another presupposition. Gluten-free crackers are unhealthy. Why? What I would say is that generally speaking, when we extract something like gluten from a food, what we're really doing is we're taking away the one thing that was, causing a difficulty. You understand? So say somebody is eating, say, bread, and the gluten irritates their digestive system. So now these smart hairless apes from the third rock from the sun go, hey, we can just take the gluten out, now you can eat that thing. But what if that thing was just a warning? What if that thing was just a warning? It was just a thing to say, hey, this is not such a good idea. And then we take that away. Now, the bigger issue that I would say is that when we use the word healthy, we think in terms of necessary, unnecessary, and dysfunctional. right? If you want to think of food that way. So we can very safely argue that crackers are unnecessary, right? There's no nutritional need for them. We've lived for millions of years without them. We've lived for millions of years without wheat, for that matter. So there's no nutritional requirement for them, which means at a minimum, they're unnecessary. Then we can go to the next question and say, well, wait a minute, are they potentially dysfunctional? Well, if they have gluten in them, for many people, it's obviously dysfunctional. It's going to cause them stomach pains and difficulties, right? And then for other people that don't have immediate gluten intolerance, the question is, well, is it dysfunctional for them? And what I would argue is, yeah, it still is. They're just not lucky enough to get the immediate communication from the body. That's the issue. And so when we remove the gluten, we're taking away that immediate communication from the body. And then we're allowing ourselves to eat something that's not functional. Does that make sense? I hope so. And by the way, if any of my questions pop up a follow-up for you on that given thing, just raise your hands or pop something in the chat and I'll get to the follow-up questions as well. I'm just going to quickly look through the screens and see if I'm getting any. Oh, look at that. JB, I see you. So JB, go for it. I can see you. Your lighting, it makes it look like you're in the witness protection program, but mostly I can see you.
I keep trying to unmute. There, I'm unmuted. Sorry.
There you are.
I'm unmuting me. Good morning, Eric. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Great. So question, I just finished my run, came upstairs to watch the webinar. So my first meal after my run is usually my shake. And I've gotten in the habit of making my shake with spinach and avocado and nuts and seeds and some fruit and ice and water, and it's sort of been lasting me throughout the day. And then I sort of have my big meal at 4 o'clock. But I'm not seeing any, like, I'm not seeing any change in my physique. I'm running 5K, I'm having my shake, I'm eating my good meal at the end of the day, and I'm just sort of at this plateau.
Okay, so this is, there's a couple of different things going on. I want to be clear about running for a minute. Humans are runners. Despite what anybody might say about bad knees and bad ankles and all this kind of stuff, humans are runners. And, you know, there's many arguments for it. My dad really was the one who helped me to see this. My dad's probably one of the most knowledgeable guys on the planet about human history and the migration of humans around the planet and all that kind of stuff, which, as you can imagine, really helped me a lot with WildFit. And one of the things that he told me about once was that, you know, they did some scientists were doing some research. And one of the things they wanted to see is, for example, how far can humans see vultures from? You know, if they're out in the wilderness. And it turns out you can see them from about 10 kilometers. And here's what's really interesting about that is that there's not a single scavenger. There's not a single scavenger that we can outrun over 10 kilometers. A hyena can beat us there. The lions can beat us there. The jackals can beat us there. The birds can definitely beat us there. So in other words, where a lot of people, you know, there were a lot of, you know, scientists and anthropologists and stuff that were theorizing that humans were like scavengers, hunter-gatherer scavengers. But we wouldn't have made very good scavengers really because we can't run fast enough to get there. But at the same time, there's not a single prey animal anywhere in Africa that can outrun a human over 30 miles. Not one. We are the ultimate long distance running machines. And that's because we evolved attrition hunting capacity. So we are meant to be able to do long distance running. Now here we get into a little bit of a problem. And the problem is that hunting was largely a male thing to be doing. And so the way that women exercised was different. It was much more aerobic and much more holistic. It was like, I'm lifting this, I'm moving that, I'm walking around, I'm walking a lot, I'm gathering food, I'm collecting water, I'm nurturing. Like it's a very different form of exercise. Men would go out hunting, and that hunting would involve high speed walking and running and sprinting. And so and by the way, last December, I went and I stayed a week with the Hadza Bushmen. Rather than just going and visiting with them, I actually went and stayed. I didn't take any food with me. I did take water because I'm not a complete idiot, but I didn't take food, which was idiotic enough, but it basically meant that I had to live with them. And the very first day, we woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning and they said, hey, do you want to go hunting? I'm like, yeah, let's go hunting. And I carried a pedometer with me so I could track how far we went. And we did 27 miles. I don't know what that means in kilometers, 50 something. I do know that a marathon is 26 miles. So we did 27 miles that day, 42 degrees outside. Now, why I'm saying this to you is that it appears, and I'm no expert on this particular topic, I've done some reading about it. I just say it appears that intensive exercise is stress reducing in men and sometimes stress causing in women. So when a man goes to the gym and sprints or does a major spin class or lifts really heavy weights, then it actually can be stress reducing. When a woman does that kind of stuff, think about it. The only reason that a woman would be doing that in nature is because things were dangerous. So the only reason that she'd be doing that kind of stuff is because something was threatening her existence. She was running away from something. She would, she was fighting. Like it wouldn't be a stress reducing activity for her. Now, one of the challenges is that stress seems to trigger in people a reluctance to release weight. And that makes sense if you really think about it, because if your situation is stressful, if your environment is stressful, what that might indicate is that there's a shortage of food, that there's a shortage of hydration. And so if I'm experiencing stress, I am not going to release my stored, think of it this way. Imagine you're a squirrel or a chipmunk and you've stored all these nuts and stuff and you're under a huge amount of stress. And one of your friends comes over and says, hey, can I have some of your nuts? You're like, no, I'm under stress. Not going to happen. Well, your body, I believe, reacts the same way. And so with intensive exercise, you actually communicate to your body. And the other thing is, again, as a woman, would you be running 10 kilometers a day every day if there was an abundance of food and water around you all the time? No, you wouldn't. So you're basically potentially communicating to your body, hey, times are scary and stressful right now. And so I had better not release. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm glad. Keep me posted. I'd love to hear.
Okay, and so what's the first thing I should eat after my lunch?
I've lost your sound. I can hear that you're talking, but it's really faint.
What is the best thing to eat right after a run?
Oh, the best thing to eat right after a run. Again, I try to do the whole time machine exercise. Like I look at this and go, historically, when would we have eaten what? Like what would have driven us to eat what? And one of the things that's really clear to me, without having to get in the time machine, with having to go and live with Bushmen, is that when they hunt, there's two things going on. While they're hunting, they will opportunistically stop and eat vegetables and fruit, vegetables and stuff that happen to come along. So they will opportunistically stop and do that. So I was just with them a few weeks ago. We're out, they stop, they see this bush. The guy starts digging and he dug for 15 minutes trying to find the roots. It turned out the plant wasn't ready with its roots yet and we didn't get anything. But you can imagine the calories that he's putting out to run to that spot, stop, he sees the bush, he digs for 15, 20 minutes. He dug a huge hole, no roots, but he certainly was going to. That said though, last year when we did our 27-mile run, the next day and by the way, we didn't get anything that day. 27 miles and we got a few birds. Little things, right? And nobody's fattening up on what we got that day. But the next day we went out again. Now, can you imagine me? I'm relatively fit, right? But hey, 27 miles. And don't think for a minute we're talking 27 road miles, right? I did the London Marathon. Everybody's like, oh, the London Marathon, it's grueling. There's that one stretch where you have to go across the cobble streets. It's so hard on you. 27 miles, 42 degrees outside, sometimes on my hands and knees in the bush with thorns ripping my legs. It was a different kind of 27 miles. And then in the morning we wake up at 6 and they're like, do you want to go again? The next day. So I go, yep. When in Rome, right? So I went out, we did 17 miles that day. And the only reason we stopped at 17 miles is we managed to get a big bush pig. What do you think we ate immediately after our exercise? Lean quality meat. And I suspect that would have been a fairly consistent thing, that when we were out there doing that exercise, it would then trigger us to do that. Now, again, this might be somewhat different for men and women. And what I would say is that, it's probably like for me, when I go kiteboarding, if I do a major kiteboarding session, I might go out for 3 hours. I come back, I'm like famished, right? And I'm always reminded, I had this girlfriend when I was in high school, and one day she was so hungry, and she goes, oh, I'm ravishing. She meant famished, but it was cute. But the point is, if I go out for my 3 hours and when I get back, I am craving protein. I'm craving it, and I go to a local place that does really good quality meat, and that's what I eat after exercise. Does that help? Cool. Thanks, JB. Good to see you. Anybody else with a live question before I go to my pre-existing ones? Andrea, if you could continue keeping an eye out for me, that would be really, really handy. Amanda, thanks for the great comment. I'm glad you're doing so well. I'm really thrilled for you. I am going to, what are your findings about supplements necessary or not if we eat a good organic variety of foods? So this is a question I get asked a great deal. What are my beliefs about supplements? I'm curious, can I just do a quick poll? How many of you are currently taking supplements? I'd like of some kind. How many of you are currently, hold your hands up because I'm going to flick through the screens here and just get a sense. So it kind of looks like, wow, it looks like quite a few are taking supplements. All right, so here's the thing. Generally speaking, inside the circle of what we consider to be fully wild fit does not include something that we call extracts. So extracts are when we take a whole food item and we remove something from it. So extracts might include oils. Not to say we're not okay with oils. I'm just talking about what extracts are right now. So extracts might include oils. They might include extracted vitamins and minerals. They might include, you know, anything like tofu, for example. And there are things that are like derivatives where they take something out of the core food and they say, hey, just have this one thing. So I'm not really a big fan of extracts in a general sense, because I believe that it's almost like, think of it like a symphony. You know, it's one note in what is supposed to be a digestive symphony. In other words, your body did not evolve to eat vitamin C on its own. Your body evolved to extract vitamin C from a plant source. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So that said, now let's talk about the fact that our world is different today. Our soil is, nutrient deficient, and our food system is nutrient deficient, and our lifestyles are nutrient deficient. So should we be having supplements? Well, the first thing I really want you to know is that the large perceived requirement for supplements is just really excellent marketing. That's the way it is. In fact, a very good friend of mine and a mentor of mine was one of the guys kind of responsible for this stuff, because he developed one of the early campaigns where they discovered in some research that in certain farm areas, that because of monocultures and repetitive farming and not proper soil treatment, that topsoil nutrients were being depleted really badly. And so he took that market data and he created a whole series of campaigns around that market data and used it to sell supplements. And then that caught on, and every supplement company started doing it. So I want to be really clear that, in my opinion, the tremendous demand for supplements is a marketing function and not a reality. Now, that said, I am not saying that there's no time for supplements. I'm saying that the majority of the demand is driven by marketing, not by reality. So is it possible that somebody has a specific nutrient and deficiency and they require supplementation? Sure. It's possible that somebody's running low on oxygen and we need to give them some oxygen. Does it, I mean, you know, some of you guys will know, I just went up Kilimanjaro a couple of weeks ago. We took a band up there, really cool band. It was so much fun. They're called Tunnel Vision. And they did a concert at the top of Kilimanjaro and set a world record. And we broadcast it Facebook Live. It was so cool. Guess what we had to supplement the saxophone player with at 20,000 feet of altitude, or 6,000 meters? Oxygen, right? So yeah, there are times when for environmental reasons or behavioral reasons, there might be a deficiency, and now we need to go ahead and supplement that. In the case of oxygen, though, it's really clear. Oh, look, I'm going to pass out. I need some oxygen, right? It's very clear. In the case of supplements, it's not so clear. And now here's where we start getting victimized by marketing. And by the way, I say that as a guy regarded as a marketing expert. And I developed something called Inception Marketing. I teach it all over the world. I know how they do these things. And all you really need to do is you need to just get people, pay attention to the right thing and get a little bit afraid. And the next thing you know, they're going to buy your bottle of whatever. And that, unfortunately, is what's going on. So the Wild Fit view of supplements works like this. Step one, get your nutrients from healthy, ethically raised, organically produced, high quality food. Step one. In other words, do the very best you can to not have a nutritional deficiency in the first place. Is step one clear? Does that make sense? All right. Step two. If at that stage you identify an actual nutritional deficiency, not a marketing fueled fear that I think I might be having a problem, an actual, provable, measurable, symptom related deficiency, then, oh wait, before I tell you what to do then, let me tell you how this works. When my first baby was born, I have a 19-year-old boy, so 20 years ago. He was born in England, and England runs a little bit of a nanny state at times. And they actually, I'm not kidding you. It's funny, they call it a nanny state, but let me prove to you that nanny state is actually a good metaphor. Because when your baby is born, they send a health visitor to your house to examine whether your house is a good house and to examine whether, hey, Matthew, you live in the UK. Are you familiar with this? I was blown away. They knock on the door, there's a health visitor. And so they come along and they ask you a bunch of questions. So the health visitor came for her first visit. She came for the second visit. And during the second visit, she said, I'm a little bit concerned about your baby. Now, who would react badly to that sentence? I'm a little bit concerned about your baby. Anybody might react badly? Yeah, immediately adrenaline, right? Immediately. Oh, I'm a new parent. Doesn't matter how confident I am in the world. I'm a brand new parent. I'm not like a woman with a clipboard. She had a clipboard and everything. She said, I'm a little bit worried about your baby. And I go, what do you mean? And she goes, I'm concerned that he might have an iron deficiency. What? Why? I mean, he's not even 18 months old and all he gets is breast milk. I go, he's getting exactly what he's supposed to be getting. What do you mean he has an iron deficiency? And she says, well, I'm concerned about it. And I said, okay. I took a breath. I let the adrenaline pass through and I said, let me ask you a question. What's the basis of your concern? She says, what do you mean? What's the basis of my concern? I said, well, the symptom, the measurement, the test. Why are you saying this to me? And she goes, well. And I said, answer the question, what's the symptom? What's the test? What's the issue? And she goes, well, actually, and guys, I'm not exaggerating. This is exactly what she said. I might not have the words exactly right, but I'm telling you, this is exactly what she said. She goes, actually, there's nothing wrong with your baby. In fact, in all the years I've been doing this, he's the healthiest baby I've ever seen. And I said, so why are you telling me he might have an iron deficiency? And she says, because the book says so. Who do you suppose paid for that to be in the book? The company that produces the iron supplements. So I want to be very, very clear that when I say that you, step one, boost your nutrition up to do everything you can within your power to make sure you don't have a nutritional deficiency. And then I say, step two, once you've done everything you can and you look for if you find a measurable, provable nutritional deficiency, not a theoretical one, not one where your doctor goes, I'm worried that you might, no, a provable one. Then at that point, step two, you seek out food sources for that nutrient. If you are running low on magnesium, you seek out magnesium-rich foods. If you are running low on vitamin C, you seek out vitamin-rich foods. That is step two. Does step two make sense to everybody? Yeah? Cool. Step three, having tried step one and step two, and now actually having a deficiency, a measurable, provable deficiency, it is at that point that you consider supplementation. It's at that point. And then you do your research and you get the very best possible supplementation that you can. You do not fall prey to the ridiculous marketing. You do not buy the one with the nicest colored. You go and get the one that you know is the right one to get. And I want to be clear about the word supplement. Supplement does not mean replacement, right? But that's how most people are taking supplements today. They're going, well, I can't get all this in, so I'm going to replace it with this pill. No. All right, cool. Did I answer that question well? I hope so. Lara, you're next. You are unmuted and live.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So I've been doing the program via video and I've been really enjoying it. I've noticed tremendous changes, but I've come up against something where I'm eating too many nuts. And I'm trying to stop eating them. I'm wondering if I'm just not getting enough of the salt, and it's partly because I have the salted, nuts, but I've noticed that I've gone in reverse. I mean, I feel like I'm not burning the fat anymore, and I'm having trouble stopping it. And usually things like this aren't usually that hard for me, but this is really a hard one.
Okay. Can I ask you, was there anything that you were eating too much of before?
Before I started the program? Yeah. Probably almonds, yeah. And I'm still eating a lot of the almonds.
Okay. So the first thing is eating too many nuts is a high quality dietary problem, right? Like I say this because what will often happen is that we will have people that come into the program and they'll go, I'm really concerned, you know, I'm in spring and I accidentally ate an apple yesterday and I feel horrible about it. I'm like, okay, like 2 months ago, you would have accidentally eaten a Mars bar. So I'm not too worried, you know, so eating too many nuts is a high quality nutritional problem. There are some things you can do to slow down the nut thing. And you know, one of the things that I'm a big fan of, a really big fan of, is when I used to go visit my grandparents, I'd go to their house and they always would have a bowl of nuts on the coffee table. Always. But the nuts were in their shells. And there was a nutcracker there. And what that simply did is brought a little bit of nature back into the conversation. You see, there's a great video I'd love for you to go and try and find. It's a video on YouTube, and if any of my team can find it real quick and post it in the notes, go ahead. But it's a video from the movie Chimpanzee by Disney, and it's a young chimpanzee. It was orphaned. I can't remember how it was orphaned, but it was orphaned, and in a very uncharacteristic moment, the alpha chimpanzee adopted him. And that's very, first of all, uncommon for a male to do that, and secondly, for the alpha to do that, but he did. And there's this gorgeous scene in the movie where the old grizzled chimp is showing the young chimp how to harvest nuts. And so, you know, you watch this, right? Like they have to get the nuts. So, and they're smart. They're smarter than the average animal. So they go and collect all the nuts. They don't go get one nut and then figure it out. They go get a bunch of nuts, which is already showing some intelligence, right? Then they have rocks. And they sit there and smash the nuts and smash them and eat them, smash them and eat them. But the little guy, man, he is struggling. He hurts his thumb. You know, it's a huge amount of effort. And so why I think you might find that video interesting is that I'd like you to think about the effort that would go into harvesting and then shelling all the nuts you're eating, and how much time it would take you to do all that. Have you ever seen an almond in its natural habitat?
No.
Everybody, hang on. All right, I'm back. Okay, now, here's what I did. Just outside here, we have palm trees and almond trees. And so these, I always step on them and they really hurt my feet. It's an almond. It's an old almond. Here's another one. And I want you to know that I could go and get my Leatherman right now, and it would probably take me 8 minutes to open this. I mean, they are really tough to open. Now, this one might be a little easier because it's all dry now, but when they're fresh, they're unbelievably challenging to open. Almonds, interestingly enough, are quite closely related as plants go. The almond tree is quite closely related to peach trees. And so an almond looks very much like a very, very small green peach. Can you imagine trying to open a green peach? It's very difficult, and the almond is even more so. So in other words, for you to eat a handful of almonds represents what might take an hour's worth of work, and that's without you having to climb the tree, right? So what I would suggest to you is that you set your life up in such a way where it takes a little bit of work. So one idea is buy your nuts in the shells. And then the other way is you can do logistical things, like, do you work from home?
I work out of town a lot, and I also, during the same time, I was having a lot of stress, and you said, I'm in spring, and you said avoid stress. It's like, that's not possible. It's high
you work
stress.
Where?
Huh?
You said you work from where?
No, I work out of town. So
out of town a lot.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, so one of the things that I suggest, at least when it comes to being at the house, is like, don't bring the nuts to you. Leave the nuts in another room, and when you want some, you go get a small handful of them, and you bring them to your desk, and you eat those ones. And then when you need more, you go get them. Now, all that'll do is inject in you a consciousness of how often you're going to get them. Whereas if you bring the whole bag to your desk, You can eat it like popcorn, and the next thing you know, you've slammed your system with it, which, by the way, I'd be a little bit concerned about, because again, your digestive system never evolved to eat nuts on that kind of volume and that kind of speed ever, because they required harvesting. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing is in the realm of kind of mental hacks, right? You can do, I do these little games with myself where, you know, if I want to do something like, you know, let me think of an example. Like, for a long time, I don't really watch TV anymore these days. Have a newborn, it's that can do away with, have a newborn and have a major passion business like WildFit, and the TV kind of disappears. But in the past, or when I'm traveling on the road and I feel like I want to watch a movie or something, I think to myself, okay, if I'm going to do that, I've got to have a bit of a workout first. So I can't watch the movie unless I do a hotel room workout. I just have a rule that does that. So one of the things you can do is exactly that. You say, all right, I'm going to eat these nuts, but if I'm going to eat these nuts, then I need to do 5 incline press ups or something. And I just mean, like, you know, incline press ups. I'm not talking you have to get on the floor. I'm saying you lean on your desk and you do 25 incline press ups off your desk. It'll just work out your pecs a little bit, get your arms going. But what it'll do is it'll slow down your nut consumption, because you're like, well, I don't have time to do those right now. Okay, can't eat the nuts. So I hope this gives you a little bit of, you know, a couple of tools for how you can slow down the nut intake. But again, if eating excessive nuts is your biggest nutritional challenge at the moment, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Bear in mind that the nuts are very good in healthy fats, which are really, really great for the process that you're going through right now. But nuts also are quite high in sugars at times as well. And so that can, if you're eating them in too high a volume, you can kind of, you may well interrupt spring a little bit. And one of the things you might want to do is get yourself some keto sticks, where you can actually measure whether or not you're in ketosis or out of ketosis relative to spring. Cool?
Cool, thank you.
You're welcome. Good to see you. All right, unless I see hand waving, I'm going to go to my next written question here. I don't see any. Andrea, you let me know. Shepley, you're so cute. Shepley says, Shepley's questions well, her question is, I know you don't offer medical advice, but, right? All right. So Shepley's question is, I know you don't offer medical advice, but, you know, can nutrition help low thyroid function, and can it also help with depression and so on? So yeah, I'm going to be really clear. I don't offer medical advice, and I won't. I'm not a doctor, and what I'll offer you is one general WildFit principle, and that general WildFit principle is that whatever you're healing from, injury, disease, invading virus, whatever the case is, your body is going to respond better with the best possible hydration, nutrition, and oxygenation. So that's just a basic principle. I'm thinking the FDA can't argue with me about that. I'm thinking I'm not going to step on any legal toes by making that one claim. Now, where that claim leads us is that, and Shepley, I'm sure you've seen this, but we have routinely had people run through the WildFit Challenge and report massively improved thyroid function and massively improved state of well-being. In other words, I used to be sad all the time, and now I'm not really feeling that way. And sometimes it happens during the challenge, and sometimes it happens in the year following the challenge when they had a lot of weight they needed to release. Because very often carrying that weight is really putting a strain and a stress on the body, which has an impact on emotions and all that kind of stuff. So I would say to you that absolutely yes, getting your nutrition right, which is to say, step 1, getting the best possible nutritional load that you can. Step 2, eliminating as many of the toxicities as you can. Step 3, getting some good functional intentional movement in your life. I think those 3 things can definitely have an impact on improved thyroid function and improved state of being, improved emotional state of being. Great question, thank you. With your experience with the Hadza Bushmen, this comes from Gretchen, I imagine, do they have any favorite foods? I imagine they hunt when hungry, but do they focus on certain prey because it sounds good today? I love it, you're doing the time machine exercise. You're saying, what's it really like for them, right? So let me tell you right now, yes. How many of you guys have seen the movie, the new Jungle Book? How many of you seen the new Jungle Book movie? All right, for those of you, particularly I'm sure most of you parents with younger children that have seen it, or those of you who are like me, just like those movies anyway. But the point is that in that movie, there's a scene where I think it's Baloo convinces Mowgli to climb up a cliff to go get honey, right? And the cliff is so high and the honey is hanging from the top. And it's like, even though it's like a movie and you know it's not real, it's actually like, if you've got any issues with heights, it kind of can make your hands sweat. It's filmed so very well. Here's what creeps me out about that scene. Within a few weeks of seeing that movie, like a few weeks before I saw that movie, I was with the Hadza Bushmen and we were out hunting. This is a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago. We were out hunting as usual. And we came to a place in a gorge where there was cliffs on either side of us going up that were maybe 70 meters, 200 feet, you know, something in that realm, really high. And there were honey, there was beehives hanging from the ledge of the cliff, just like in the movie The Jungle Book. And then the elders told the kids to go get them. These are kids, by the way, of who knows what age. You know, they don't have birth certificates, so nobody really knows. They don't keep track of it. But I'm going to tell you that to me, these kids couldn't have been a day over 12 years old, right? And they were just moving into being in the hunting area, like they were being invited to come on the hunting trip. So they were maybe just in that 11 to 12-year-old range. And these kids started scampering up that cliff. It scared the pants off of me. I was terrified for them the entire time. I actually eventually went to the chief because it suddenly occurred to me, like, I don't want to interfere, right? You know, but the problem is, we know in science, the observer affects the outcome. And I suddenly realized maybe there's a chance they're doing this for me. Maybe there's a chance they're pushing the limits for me. And I'm like, that is not permissible, because I've got my cameras rolling and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I suddenly think to myself, they may be pushing, the kids might be doing it to show I'm done. I actually went to the chief and said, please get them to come down. And he goes, I couldn't if I tried. Now get this, he's like, I already tried to convince them not to go up. I thought he was convincing them to go up, right? No, they have a massive predilection for honey. They love this stuff. It's a major motivation for them. So they definitely really like honey. They also very much like big game meat. They really like bush pig and large antelopes and stuff. The other day when I was with them about 3 weeks ago, I showed them a picture of an eland or an eland that I took a picture of an eland in the Ngorongoro Park, and I showed it to them, and they got so excited. They wanted to know exactly where I took the picture. They were very, very excited about it. And it turns out they had just killed one about 3 weeks earlier, and it was like they were still talking about how nice it tasted. So they definitely do have tastes and flavors in a given direction. And I would say that for those of you who are familiar with the 6 hungers in WildFit, one of the hungers is variety. And I think that that's part of that, is that let's imagine you're living like the Bushmen, and suddenly there's one type of a food that's available all the time, right? Okay. Well, you out of laziness, you would just eat that food. Why go do all this work if this food is sitting here? But I think what would happen in time is the body would recognize, I'm really loaded up on whatever nutrients are available in this food, and I'm really low on other stuff. And it would then kick in a craving for variety and say, got to get something different. Got to get something different. So I hope that answers your question. Really, really good question. Have you had any, Veronica, no. Veronica asks, have we had participants with a history of suffering from bulimia? No. We have had some clients that have had a past history with anorexia that I'm aware of, not bulimia. But I will tell you this though. When we first started our first class, we had a couple people in the class that clearly had eating disorders. Like I'm not going to get into why that was, but they clearly had eating disorders. And Jackie, who has been with us from the very beginning of WildFit, who actually just started her maternity leave today. So we're all quaking in our boots about what life without Jackie's like. But Jackie came to me at one point because she'd worked in the diet and fitness industry for years and years, running weight loss programs and so on. And she kind of, I think she wasn't totally on board with what I wanted to do with WildFit, because she was working with me in my business seminar business. And now I wanted to launch this WildFit thing. And she's like, I don't know about this. And I showed it to her, and I went through it with her. And then she goes, yeah, but Eric, I've seen some of the people that we have in this first test class, and some of them have eating disorders, and you're going to have to cope with that. And I go, you know, I'm not. And she goes, what do you mean? And I go, I really believe that eating disorders are amplified by malnutrition, that addiction is magnified by malnutrition. So I think what you're going to observe is that as we take people through the challenge, is that they're going to start to move away from their disorders more openly and more naturally, and then they're going to be more open to therapy. They're going to be more open to solving a problem. And that is exactly what we found. But I can't answer that question specifically related to bulimia. So I hope that does answer your question though. Lori, you know, how is WildFit different from many of the other programs that I've tried and quit or failed on? Well, I'll tell you one difference: the results. And I mean, you can see the comments from clients here that have already written, and you can see, you know, comments from people online. We have frankly, an unbelievable success rate at the moment. I'm not going to say it works for every single person every single time, but we have had an unbelievable success rate. We've had classes where we've run in the 90 to 95% success rates. We've had classes where it's been as low as sort of 80%, but that's, you know, it's very, very high. So to answer your question, that would be one difference. But if we get into the sort of logistical differences, there are some big things, and I'm going to only answer two of them right now. But the one is that we deal with psychology in a way that I have not seen in any other program ever. And I fully expect, and I want you guys to mark my words, that you will begin to see what we do propagating out into the diet world, because no diet is getting the kind of numbers that we're getting. By the way, statistically, people go on a diet, on average, they gain 3 pounds every time they go on a diet, right? That's the industry. That's how it works. So I fully expect that the psychological component to what we do with WildFit, and by the way, any of you who are clients, if you want to comment on the difference it makes to do the psychological aspects, I'd love to see, and you can share that with the other people who don't understand what I mean. And the reason I say this is that one of the core principles of WildFit is that willpower does not work. You cannot make you cannot easily anyway, or statistically, make long-term changes to your lifestyle through willpower alone, because willpower will eventually kick in. And so I will tell you that yes, there are some foods I think you probably should stop eating or cut way back, but I will not ask you to do that on willpower alone, because one day an event will take place and you'll just go back to it. As we all know. I mean, come on, how many of you guys have done that? I'm not eating this anymore, or I'm not eating this for 3 months, and then you're eating it. How many have had that, right? Well, so what we want to do is something different, where we actually want to change your wants. And that requires a level of psychological understanding that I haven't seen in any other nutrition program. So our clients will routinely say things like, Eric, what have you done to me? I don't feel like eating ice cream at all. It's a lot easier to not eat it if you don't feel like it. And so that's the really, you know, one of the very big differences between WildFit and the rest of the industry. And another big difference is that we acknowledge a scientific truth that is just not acknowledged in other diet programs. Again, I'm starting to see it happening. I mean, we've been at this for 4 years and I'm starting to see it propagating, right? But it's seasonality. It's seasonality, that the idea of a recommended daily allowance or a perfect day of nutritional, you know, whatever, like that's a rubbish idea. It's a marketing concept. It's wrong. We evolved with seasons. We evolved where some foods were abundant and other foods were rare, and then other foods were abundant and then other foods were rare. And so our bodies have evolved the capacity to absorb and store certain nutrients over periods of time until it was gone. And so it was gone, we'd still have it. And then when it came back, we'd top up on it. And our bodies also respond to those seasons. As many of you guys will know, you'll be familiar with what I refer to as spring. Spring is a season of abundance where the body says, wow, if things are like this in nature, I don't need to hold on to my extra weight. And then the weight more easily comes off the body for most people. And so that's another big difference between the functionality of WildFit and the reason that we get the success rates we do. Lori, I hope that answers your question. If you've got more questions of that nature, please pop a note directly to the team. They'll certainly support you. It sounds like you might want to join us. Let's see here. An extra step I could do to gain more muscles. It is related to health rather than beauty, because I realize that I'm very low level right now. Okay, so I'm going to paraphrase that. Sophia says, hey, what can I do to actually put on weight? What can I do to gain muscle mass? And she's saying it's not out of vanity that I want to gain it. It's that I'm really low on it, right? So you know, what's interesting is that the body, from an instinct perspective, the body only wants to have what it needs to have. What I mean by that is that our bodies only carry extra weight when the body has a perception that carrying that extra weight is going to help you to survive. It's an ironic twist, of course, because now most people are carrying so much extra weight that they're going to die young. That's the harsh reality of it, right? But the body doesn't see it that way. The body is not thinking that way. Our instincts are, hey, if I'm concerned that there's going to be long periods of dehydration and starvation, I'd better store fat because it's going to help me to survive. At the same time, the body is not going to put muscle mass on that it doesn't perceive that it needs. Why would it want to do that? Why would it want the heart to do the extra work, the lymphatic system to do the extra work, to carry around the extra weight? So the body is not going to put on extra muscle unless it perceives that it needs it. Does this make sense to you guys? All right. So now, if you want to put muscle mass on, you have to do two things. You have to, first of all, convince the body that it needs it. And secondly, give it what it needs to build it. Right? Well, how do you convince your body that it needs it? You use the muscles. You use the muscles, and not in machines, not in repetitive movement machines that are isolating your muscles and preventing your joints from moving. Like when somebody does like bicep curls in a machine, right? Then the machine has only one linear form of movement, which means all you can really do is isolate that single muscle, but build no strength in the muscles or ligaments that are designed to protect the elbow. And that means the next time when you go to do something with this super strong muscle, you're going to hurt your elbow, right? So from a WildFit perspective, we do not believe in machines. We believe in natural, functional movements that mimic natural things that we would have had to do in nature. Do more of those. Kettlebells are fine. That's not a machine. Free weights, if you do curls with a free weight, then you're getting lateral movement and you're exercising holistically. So the first thing is to make sure that you're moving the muscles with enough variance of movement, like not one exercise routine, but several different things that you're doing. And then the other side of it is to make sure that you're giving your body what it needs. Now, you already know from your answer what one of those things is. One of those things is protein. Your body is going to need certain proteins in order to build these dense muscles. But you know, this is the big thing that so many people are missing out on. I'm going to say this, and some of you already know this, and you're going to go, yeah. And some of you are going to go, huh, I never thought of that. Water. If you want to build muscle, you need to be really hydrated because your muscle is heavily made up of water. You're a big bag of water. And if you are dehydrated, then your body's going to go, I'd love to build a little muscle over here, but damn, I don't have any water. And it won't be able to build it. Does this make sense? All right. I hope that answered your question, Sophia. Okay, let's see. I thought I saw hand waving. Are there any other live ones here that I can go to? I've got lots more written ones, but I love interacting. Let's see, anybody else for live? Oh, you guys are also shy when we go live like this. Helen, I see you there. Let's do it. Go for it. You're live.
Well, I put it in the chat as well because I had trouble getting my question in. What it has to do with is the use of the metabolic body type in the WildFit program. Over the years, and with all of the things I did for myself, I had learned that my body style is a thyroid type that needs protein in small amounts throughout the day, and of course can't handle sugar and carbs really, except, I mean, good carbs, the greens and things. But at any rate, other people are pituitary types. Their faces always look young. They have a need for different foods than I do. The same with those that are adrenal. They have a totally different body shape. I've wondered why, well, in the gonadal type, very obvious with a large rump and often very big breasts, that those glands are dominant. And I've wondered why that is not part of what we're doing in WildFit, because I seem to go counter to myself during some of the spring session, counter to like so that I was not losing the weight in the same way as I did when I immediately improved my diet by eliminating sugar, etc.
Yeah, okay. There's a couple of different things at work there. The one is that the earliest weight you lose is the easiest weight to lose. So what I mean is that once we trigger weight loss in a person, let's say they want to lose, 50 pounds. The first 10 are the easiest, and the next 10 are the next easiest, and the next 10 are the next easiest, but the last 10 are the toughest. One of the problems with that is that we will often have people come to us and go, well, I did this calorie restriction diet with points, and I managed to lose 10 pounds in 6 weeks. And then I came onto WildFit and I only lost 20 pounds in 3 months. And so maybe the other program worked better. Okay, first of all, the other program, there's a lot more that goes into that because of course the other program ended and then they went back to eating the way they used to eat and all this kind of stuff. But the other side of it is that the first weight you lose is actually the easiest weight to lose. So that's partly what's at play. The other thing is that when you look at this sort of metabolic metabolic typing diets or genome type diets or blood type diets. What I want to put to you is that for the most part, those distinctions and differentiations are symptomal and not actual. So what I mean by that is that, you know, like frankly, I'm a really big fan of Ayurvedic medicine. I am. I really like it. I view it as very important ancient wisdom. It's just not quite as ancient as our history. You know, in the world of Ayurveda, it's like, oh, this tremendously ancient history. Okay, we're talking 3,000 years old. That's 5 seconds ago in our evolutionary history. So not so ancient. But the challenge I have is that when we do get into the body typing, which we could do with Ayurveda, or we could do with blood typing, or we could do with metabolic diet, and so on. What we're talking about at that point is how we respond to certain foods. So, you know, one of the Vedic body types might be not so good at having dairy products, and then the other one is good at having dairy products. Okay, let's be really clear. Homo sapiens are not supposed to be having any kind of real volume of dairy products. I don't care that you don't react to it. I don't care that it doesn't cause a symptom in you. That it doesn't cause a symptom in you may well be a problem because you're not getting the warning that you should be getting that would prevent the long-term health repercussions. When somebody is of a body type where it's like, oh, I can handle grains. I did my genome testing. They said I could handle grains. No, what that meant is that your body doesn't warn you about eating grains. It doesn't mean they're good for you. It doesn't mean they're necessary. What it means is that they don't hurt you when you eat them, but they might hurt you in the long term. So what I'm really trying to say is that, again, and it'll always be the foundation of, or I shouldn't say it'll always be, with my current understanding of things, and I'm always researching, I'm always willing to learn, my current view is that our first goal is to satisfy our nutritional requirements as best possible, which includes food, water, air, and to require our movement needs as best possible. Then, if we have certain proclivities, like I get that there are different body types. My wife, I'm telling you, we live in the tropics, and she, right now, is probably wearing socks and shoes. Oh no, I can see her socks under her desk. She just went away. So she's not wearing her socks. I'm barefoot. It's too hot here to wear socks. We clearly feel temperature a little bit differently, and we respond to food a little bit differently, but we still need vitamin C. We both still need calcium. We both still need iron. We both still need healthy fats. Those requirements are Homo sapiens requirements. So we have to deal with that first. And if we get that stuff done, then even sometimes some of the body type differences become less prevalent because they've been magnified by being malnourished in the first place. So I don't know if that helps.
Well, okay, it does, but in as much as the body type has come through a genetic stream, then certain foods are more harmonious, let's say, to that particular type. And what I had been concerned about while we went through WildFit, which I think is awesome, you know, I really do appreciate it, but was concerned when people seem to be perhaps obviously, say, a gonadal type or something else in my estimation, and were suffering very badly. And that's where I was concerned, that perhaps there needs to be some accounting for some of the metabolic typing. I know about the blood type, you know, I'm familiar with that, but the metabolic was very obvious to me because of the structure of the complete body that I inherited.
So, okay, this could get a little bit cerebral, but if we talk about evolution for a minute, if we talk about evolution and we talk about when people begin to split off, like for example, there's a reason that you have light skin. The reason you have light skin is that your ancestors left Africa where they had dark skin, and then the further and further and further away they moved from the equator, the harder it came for them to absorb sunlight. And so they had to develop lighter and lighter skin to allow sunlight in, right? So there's no question that in a short period of time, when there's heavy selective pressure, we can make genetic changes. So does that mean that there are some people that find it much easier to put on fat than others? Absolutely, there are. There's no question about it. What the challenge is that for the most part, when we see people, you know, about 10% of our clients go into spring, and they struggle to go into spring for sometimes as long as 3 weeks, and they really struggle with that. Because what's happened is that quite aside from any metabolic body type they have, is that they're running their fuel system on sugar. And I really, like, no body type should be running permanently on sugar. So the challenge is that they're suffering, and they need to get through the other side, regardless of what their body type is. They need to get to the point where their body switches to being a primarily fat burning body And then they can, then they become less sensitive to sugar and they can go back to the other way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool. I'm super, super glad that you enjoyed the program. And I really love questions like this because it always makes me go and dig a little bit deeper. And, you know, as you know, I mean, last year, you know, we pulled clients and stuff, and we ended up with about, we ended up with about 150 clients that were really, you know, out of thousands that were really kind of struggling. And it turns out that about 60% of those 150 clients got great results. They just wanted better results. But they struggled with the, you know, this issue of going through spring. And so we were actually working with 105 of them to try to refine the program to figure out, and one of the things we're looking at is we polled them and asked things like, you know, you know, what sort of habits do you have on a regular basis? What body type? We are looking at that for trending to see how we can improve things even further. And it only comes because people like you ask good questions.
One other thing would be the spring period. For myself, it felt like the 6 weeks was almost too long. Oh, and just before I continue that, let me just comment. Remember how you'd said the 100%ers and the 90%ers? You didn't have an option for 99 when a person knew that they maybe missed one thing. So that's why lots of us entered 90. But anyway, back to this spring. To me, it was just slightly too long. I ended up building some energy for failure, let's say after, like for say a binge after leaving. Not huge. I mean, I've recovered from them, all of them, whatever they were around Christmas. But a little concern there that there isn't enough time in the program for the weeks that should follow. We had like 1 week, maybe part of a second, I can't quite remember, because it was right at Christmas. And for me, it would have benefited me to come out of spring more into learn your everyday mode. Like I've added back a few little things, a little bit of sugar. You know, I'm watching that it's always very low. Like I'm watching the grams if I have anything. I haven't added back cheese or milk or any of those things. The grains I'm pretty much abandoned, you know, etc. So for the most part, I'm following it. But there were some things I did allow myself to start having so that I wouldn't go into, call it a willpower craving mode. So I'm just
okay. So bear a couple things in mind. We have some clients that go into spring and we have to talk them out of it after 2 or 3 months because we don't believe that spring is supposed to be a permanent lifestyle. Other people, after 2 weeks of spring, they're like, oh, I don't want to do any more. So there's not really a one-size-fits-all answer. We've chosen 6 weeks as the recommended guideline for somebody's first time in spring. Once somebody's done that, and you could probably find this yourself, is that if you now choose to go into spring for a week or two, you'll actually start to get good results immediately, and it'll likely be easier. But the 6 week period that we've chosen is specifically to really help people make that move and get to a place where they really are truly fat burning. Because the vast majority of people have never really lived in a fat burning way, which is how they evolved. So I get that can be that for some people it can be challenging. And also I think that you did the program with the new week 13, or maybe you didn't. But in the new week 13 version, we actually do back to daily sessions with clients to really try and handhold the process over to what it's like to live after the program. And it's largely to deal with what you're talking about there, is that after a long period in spring, it's almost like, okay, if I'm going to open the door, I don't want to open the floodgates. And so we changed the program a little bit to help people deal with that.
Yeah.
So Helen, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. It's really good to see you. I'm glad to have you on the call.
Thank you, Eric.
Cheers. Okay, Danny, I am going to get to your question. I've got a number of comments from here. I want to offer, how many of you, I'm curious, out of all of you that are on the call now, how many of you have done WildFit before? Raise your hand if you've done it before. Okay, keep your hands up because I'm scrolling through the screens. Okay, excellent. So there's a couple of things I wanted to mention to you guys. There are some of you who have never done WildFit before, and I'm hoping you're seeing from the comments from people that it's a good idea to do it. What I what I would like to do, so there's a couple things that are going to happen. One is that all the other questions that we didn't get to, we are going to, we're going to write written responses to them, and we're going to post them on our Facebook page. So you're going to get, or we're going to send them out to you. I'll figure out how we get them out to you, but we're going to, all the questions we didn't get to, we're going to get there. And then there's a couple things I want to share with you. And then Danny, I'll get to yours. And if my team will let me do a few more, I will. I feel like there's something I need to get to that they're worried about. So, but here's what I want to share with you. Many of you have now joined our ambassador program. Those of you who have done WildFit with us. If you have not joined the ambassador program and you're interested in sharing this with your friends and stuff, look, you can always just tell your friends about it. That's fine. But we'd love to be able to reward you for that. And so we have a very special group of just ambassadors where we, we meet with you guys. We're going to share lots of marketing stuff, which you can use for WildFit and for your own business. I mentioned before, I'm the developer of Inception Marketing. We just did a webinar, a free impromptu bonus webinar for all the ambassadors. I think at the time there were 100 ambassadors in the group. That video has now had over 250 views. I think they like it. So as an ambassador, we're going to do the best we can to give you lots of great content that you'll be able to use to really take the WildFit message out to the world, but also that you can use in your own business life. So if you're not yet part of the ambassador team, it's a good idea to join, and you can contact our team for details. Plus they can you guys post a link in the chat if you would for everybody. The other thing is that we have a group challenge coming up on March 20th. So we're going to be running, it's another group class where I'm actually going to be teaching the class myself. I'm going to be running live webinars, doing live Q&A, exactly like many of you are familiar with, using Zoom just like this. And so for those of you who have not done the WildFit Challenge, let's get it done. Like, join in. There's a couple things you need to know. It starts on March 20th. You need to be registered by March 17th. Roughly, the schedule is that it's a 3-month program. There are daily videos for the first 2 weeks to guide you through some very carefully constructed psychological processes. There are then twice weekly videos, Mondays and Fridays, for the balance of the program. And in the final week, daily videos again that prepare you for life beyond the program. And all of that is supplemented by live sessions with me and a private Facebook group where you have some interaction with the community and also additional coaching. So for those of you who are interested in doing the WildFit Challenge, the team will post a link and we'll email it out to you as well. And you can make that happen. There's 2 really important things to know. Don't let money get in the way. Like, really, truly, just do some basic math. I think the program's like $350 a month for 3 months. It's not a lot of money. Consider the cost of time off work. Consider the cost of medication for regular colds and flus. Like, take the risk on it. And here's the thing. There's no real risk for you because we have a money back guarantee. If you do the program at a minimum level, we will simply, and it doesn't work for you, we'll just give you your money back. So if you haven't done the WildFit Challenge before, ask these people that have done it. And then after you've talked to them, sign up with our team and we'll get you there. Julia, thank you. That's excellent. Marcia, see, you guys are so sweet. Thank you very much. And then there was one other thing. Andrea, I could have sworn there was one other thing I wanted to mention. Do you know what it was? No, okay. Yeah, JB, they'll get the link out to you right now.
Sorry, Eric, I couldn't find my mute button. I was like, where did it go? Not that I could think of. I know that we just wanted to mention that we'll start a challenge on the 20th, and anybody that wants to take the ride with us, it's worth it. I know I've done it. I'm right in the middle of spring right now, and it's been absolutely wonderful for me. In fact, there's, how many of us? 8 of us here, and last night was my birthday, and so we did wings and vegetables and then added up how many pounds we've lost as a group. And we're at 76 pounds as a group has been lost in just our little company, our little team here. So not to mention everyone has more energy, more muscle, and we're all like really, really pleased and happy. And even the skeptics are on board.
I'll tell you guys a little secret is that I wanted to work with Andrea for a long time. And about 2 years ago, we had some conversations about working together, but here's how the conversation went. Oh, you want to work with us? Well, we're very expensive. We're very exclusive. Maybe we'll see what you're doing. And then I thought, the best way to win this battle is get her signed up for WildFit. So got Andrea and some of her team signed up for WildFit, and then they completed the program, and their before-after pictures and feelings were so strong that now the phone calls were like, Eric, we really want to work with you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really expensive. We'll have to see. So,
Eric, I'm willing to stop everything else I'm doing so we can just do WildFit.
That's right. So, and if you guys, by the way, those of you who are longstanding clients of ours, if you've seen a big uptick in our branding, imagery, marketing, if you've seen that, it's largely down to Andrea and her teams. They've just done a great job for us. So thank you.
And I do see a question that I wanted to address as well. Somebody asked if they have to be signed up by the 17th. We will send the link out today. And then if you can sign up by the end of day Friday, that would be fantastic, so that we can get you all set up with the emails and all the information to start on Monday, and the calls will start on Monday. So Eric will be live coaching on Monday with the first part of the program.
And for those of you who haven't done the program, I just want to offer you something. And that is that, and this is a really difficult thing for me, because I was so shocked by two things when we first created WildFit. I knew that we had the right information. I knew that we had the right structure. I had no idea how well it would work. One of the hardest things in the world for me is to sit down face to face with somebody and say, listen, I'm not going to ask you to give stuff up purely out of willpower. I'm going to help you to not want it anymore. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, you know, I'm not going to want pizza anymore. Yeah, it's entirely possible that you either won't want it or you won't want it very often. Like it'll actually change your wants. And I say that to people. And of course, now there's so many people here that are clients of ours, you know that that's true, right? But the problem is that when I said that to you before you signed up, you're like, I don't think so. And that's one of the hardest problems we have in marketing, is that our claims are so crazy that they're not really believable, but I'm telling you they are. And so if you haven't done the program, talk to these people, you go on our Facebook wall, whatever, you know, like it's true. At the end of the day, when somebody doesn't do a program like this, it comes down to either a lack of belief in the program or a lack of belief in themselves. Like, I've tried everything and failed. I've tried everything and failed. Go to our Facebook page and look at the reviews. You'll see one woman, there's a few like this, but one in particular, she goes, I've tried everything else, and this is the first time I've actually finished a program. It works. So,
and
Andrew.
Eric, I just want to say on this one, because you have to talk about pizza, but you know, sugar was my absolute downfall. And like, really, you know, if there was sugar, I was eating it. So if it was cupcakes, cookies, candies, I wasn't really picky. If it had sugar in it, I would eat it. And it was my birthday yesterday, and it did not even occur to me that I wanted cake or anything sweet. We had a big party over at my house, and we just did vegetables and chicken wings, and it was perfect. And I truly didn't even want cake. Like, there was no need to substitute for it. It was fantastic. It was actually like the best birthday gift I could have had.
Absolutely. And Andrea, I have one more question for you. Do I have something pressing that comes right after this webinar?
You have about 30 minutes, and then and then we're going to talk about the coaching certification program if anyone wants to join us for that. So you have a 30-minute break, and then we're going to talk about the coaching certification
I'm going to
program.
take like a good, I'm going to take a good 10 minutes of my 30-minute break, and I'm going to continue to answer a few questions.
Sounds good.
Okay?
And for anyone who wants to join to talk about coaching certification, if WildFit's changed your life and you want to be a coach, we'll post that link.
Yeah, I'm hosting an information session on what it's what it's like to be a coach and what our coaching program looks like. For those of you who are not already registered for that and you want to become a WildFit coach, even if you've not done WildFit before, you're welcome to join. You would need to do WildFit to become a coach in the end, but you're certainly welcome to join.
Yep.
So that said, I wanted to get as many of these things as I could. So hang on, Sharon, I saw you waving your hand. I'm going to come to you next. I will. You hang on right there. In fact, I'm even going to unmute you. Just don't say anything yet. So Sharon's next. But before I get to Sharon, Margaret, I saw your question. And she says, I graduated from WildFit last September. I've maintained my health and weight. I seem to be eating a little more animal protein than I would have expected. Is there a way to transition to eating less animal protein? I eat wild, caught, and organic, but is it necessary to eat animal protein every day? No, it is not necessary to eat animal protein every day, not for a stretch. And the only reason that we as a culture believe that it is because the Beef Growers Association fooled us with this massive need for protein. Oh my God, there's protein deficiency everywhere. Oh my God, it's horrible. Let me describe to you, let me prove this to you. You guys tell me, what stage of life do you require the highest amount of protein? What stage of life do you think? The beginning, right? Yeah, that first 18 months. Okay. What is the only perfect food for you in the first 18 months? She's pointing. Boob juice, man. Breast milk. It's the only perfect food. Okay, what percentage of breast milk is protein? About 6%. What percentage of fruit is protein? About 6%. What I'm getting at is that our massively overstated requirement for protein was created by the protein industry. We do not need meat every day at all. In fact, our planet would be deeply served by us not doing that. In fact, I like to think of myself as a carnivorous vegetarian. I believe that we should really be much more plant-based, and that we should then eat super high quality meat with less frequency. And I want to give you one little mental game that you can play with yourself to think about this. So Margaret, I don't know if I can see, I don't see you here, but Margaret, be with me. What I'm saying is this: you go to a restaurant, okay, and they've got a beautiful stir fry and a salad on the menu, and they have a wild caught grilled salmon with broccoli. On the average, if you're not a vegetarian, on the average, which meal is going to get ordered most often? What do you guys think? Hands up if you think it's most often going to be the salmon with the broccoli. Most often, that's going to be the case because it's nutrient dense. So our instinct is to go for the most nutrient dense thing that we're going to get, right? Now, that's not how nature would have given it to us. Nature would have required work to go and get that. So now the restaurant says, well, here are our two menu items, a beautiful stir fry and a salad, and the salmon with the broccoli. But if you want the salmon with the broccoli, you have to run around the block once and do 25 push-ups, and then you can order it. All right? Now, how often would we order the salmon? Less. Not never, but less. You know, come on, we'd all pop in, Julia, Pam, Matthew, William, we'd go in, we'd order the salad and the stir fry, and then we'd go another day and order the salad. And after a week of salads and stir fries, we'd all be sitting at the counter going, look at that salmon. Oh. Hey, Matthew, you in for a run around the block? Let's do it. And we would have run around the block and ordered the salmon. That's how nature would have dealt with it. Today, the salmon, the meat, the proteins, the eggs, all those things are so readily available that we are quite often tempted to eat them far more often than nature would have provided. So Margaret, I hope that answers your question. You asked, is there a way to scale it down? Yeah, scale it down. Like I would suggest maybe you just pick a day of the week where you just say, I don't eat meat that day of the week. Start with one day. Start with one day and you go, I have vegan day. And because of course, if you're wild fit, then you're obviously already off dairy products, right? So, did I let the cat out of the bag? You don't have to be off them forever necessarily. But the point is that if you're, if you decide, hey, I'm going to have one day of the week that's vegan day, and then maybe you go to 2 days a week that's vegan day. And Margaret, as you're a woman, let me tell you another thing. I believe that women can go for very long periods of time without meat at all. I think even men can do it, but I think women can do it even longer. And so I hope that answers your question. And now, as promised, Sharon, I'll go over to you.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I'm glad to be here. I graduated in January. Still working on it in and out. But my daughter wants to become a vegetarian and not eat meat. So I wanted to refresh my memory as the meat intake that you mentioned way before.
Boy,
regarding being a vegetarian.
It's such a tough conversation. It really is. I mean, the reasons for becoming a vegetarian are excellent. There are excellent reasons for being a vegetarian. The planet, being one. That meat is not the ecologically easiest thing in the world to raise, and that most meat is ethically disgusting. And that, there's so many good reasons for becoming a vegetarian. And the vegan marketing people have gotten better and better and better. And they've begun to realize that if we can get to teenagers, if we can get to young kids, particularly girls, but it works with boys as well. If we can get them early and make them feel guilty, then they'll want to become vegetarians. It's happening all over the place. Did you ever see the movie Babe?
Yes.
Yeah, the movie Babe, I thought it was a great movie. It really was. I mean, the challenge is that it did a massive bit of damage to the pork industry. Massive, because kids everywhere said, I'm not doing that anymore, right? Yeah. The farmer, by the way, the farmer in the movie, I played poker with him once. I used to have this poker game that I used to go to in LA all the time. I played with some cool people, and he came one night to play. And you know what he did? He showed up with his own vegan snacks because he is a diehard vegan. That movie was not just entertainment; it was intentional advertising and propaganda. And so, all right, let's talk a little bit about this. There has never been a long-term successful multi-generational society of vegetarians on earth. It's just not happened. India is currently in the middle of a very, what I regard to be dangerous experiment with vegetarianism. They supplement it, of course, by allowing dairy products, which I think is insane, because if the cow is so sacred, we shouldn't be milking it either. But the point is that we've never had that historically. Humans have always, their vitamin B12, for example, comes from animal products. You need it. So if you're going to become a vegetarian, you're going to have to supplement, which should prove that it's supposed to be coming from another source. That said, apparently we can store B12 in our systems for 6 to 18 months. Wow. So what that would suggest is that I could go hunting, I could go get us a buffalo, your daughter could have a buffalo steak, and then she might not need to eat meat again for like 6 months, or 3 months, or a month, or something like that. So it's a difficult thing, because these days, there are some people, depending on where they live, where they'd be better off not to eat meat based on the way the meat's being produced. I mean, if you have a choice between eating meat at McDonald's and being a vegan, I would go with vegan all day long. But if you can get, ethically raised, healthy, quality meats, then I believe that our legacy proves it. We are hunters, and we have had a meat-eating legacy for millions of years. I don't know if you know this, but there used to be elephants living on every continent on Earth. There were 10 or 12 species living in the Americas. There were another 10 or 12 living in Europe. There were another 10 or 12 living in Africa. Now there's like 3 species left on Earth. What do you think happened to them all? We ate them. We ate them into oblivion. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but I'm saying it's look, I think that dung beetles eating poop is gross. I do. I mean, dung beetles eat poop. Don't they realize that it's poop? Don't they realize that it's smelly? I mean, why are they doing that? They're doing that because that was their evolutionary legacy. They evolved into that niche, and they eat poop, and it's not gross for them to eat poop. They're supposed to eat poop. If we went and convinced a bunch of dung beetles that poop is gross and they shouldn't eat poop, then they would suffer malnutrition. And the same thing with us. When we try and convince something that eating something that's nutritionally important is not a good idea, and then you stop eating it, there are repercussions. I think that it is possible to be vegan, but that it requires an incredible amount of work and likely very careful supplementation.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay, now I've lost my document with all my written answers because I've been flicking through screens. So I'm going to go now to live questions, which is great, because if there are none, then Andrea will be happier, because I'll go off and start preparing for the other webinar we're doing. But if you've got any live questions, now's the time to wave your hand, and I'll take the last. Taj, I see you there. All right. Okay, first, I'm only doing it if you're parked.
Okay. I'm parking right now. Okay.
I have a strict rule: no driving while we're doing it. I have to have this rule because people are doing it. Okay. You taking your hands off the wheel does not tell me you're not driving.
Not driving, look.
All right,
look,
all right.
I'm not driving.
Good.
Hey, buddy. Great to see you. I have to tell you that I am, I don't know. I love spring, so it's really hard to actually go into summer now. But I keep losing centimeters. Like, my body is just like tightening a lot, and it's freaking amazing. I love it. My girlfriend is she was in summer, and she plateaued in spring, like pretty bad. If someone is losing a lot of weight while still having fruit, do we need to put them into spring?
No. I mean, okay, there's different reasons for being in spring. Weight loss is one of them, but spring does not trigger weight loss in everybody. It does in about 85 or 90% of cases. And there's some people weight loss doesn't trigger immediate weight loss, or spring doesn't trigger immediate weight loss. And some people can actually continue to lose weight even when they're eating fruit. So if somebody's goal is weight loss, then and they can lose weight while they're having fruit, then I would cycle them in and out of spring with some regularity. They'd have some time in spring, some time in. But remember that the second reason for saying goodbye to fruit on a seasonal basis is that if you're eating lots of fruit, then you are very potentially asking your body to drive itself by burning sugar, which means that there's every chance of having low blood sugar hunger and having dips of energy in the afternoon and all that kind of stuff. Remember that the pancreas was never designed for the daily processing of fruit, because fruit was seasonal. So it would have been normal for fruit to be in massive abundance for a few days or a few weeks and then gone. And then, we found a beehive, and we would eat a phenomenal amount of sugar, and our pancreas would step up and get to work, and then it would be gone. This is anecdotal, but this is a little observation I made once. you know, Ashton Kutcher played Steve Jobs in one of the Steve Jobs movies, right? And he did the whole method actor thing. You know the story? For everybody else who doesn't know, he did the whole method actor thing and decided that he would, like Steve, eat only apples or be fruitarian basically. And one day he had to be rushed off the set of the movie because his pancreas stopped functioning properly, and he had to be rushed off and taken to the hospital. And then I'm forced to ask you, do you remember what killed Steve Jobs? Pancreatic cancer. Now, I am not saying that that's it's anecdotal, but I'm just saying, wow, it is interesting. So coming off fruit is not just about weight loss, it's about giving the pancreas a break from time to time.
Well, that's yeah. I just I feel bad for her. She still has, like, she already 35 pounds and is doing really great. That she's, you know,
I'm getting really bad sound from you. Did you say that she's lost 35 pounds?
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, and so if she's plateaued in spring, then what I would consider that she does is like stay in spring, like use the, you know, you did WildFit before the WildFit, the Living WildFit book came out, I think. So have a look at that. Ask the team for a copy of that, and there's a thing in there called WildFit ratios where you can show her to go like 10 days of spring and then 1 day of summer, or 10 days of spring and 2 days of summer, and sometimes that'll shake somebody out.
Okay.
Cool. Good to see you. Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Who's next? I'm gonna do. That's it. I'm doing one more because they're telling me I have to go. So one more. I don't see any hand waving. I don't have to do one more. Oh, all right. Oh, Danny, I told you I'd come back to you, didn't I? Thank you for reminding me. Danny, you're live.
Hey, Eric. Good to see you again. This is all bringing back great memories of the program. If anyone is out there thinking they should do it, you got to do it. Anyway, I had a question. I just had the flu, unfortunately, over the last 2 weeks. And I had a hard time with the Alkagizer, which, you know, I thought, oh, I got to flood my body with, you know, the Alkagizer Prime, of course. But I couldn't drink it. It was like, drinking it like for the very first time, not because I've been drinking it every single day throughout, like every single day.
Remember that when have you noticed that when you get a flu that your taste buds, that food generally just tastes different?
Oh man, yes.
Yeah, and so that's a large part of what's happening there. And I really believe that one of the reasons that happens to us is that when we're suffering with a flu, the very best thing we can do is drink water and pretty much fast. You know, and I would go so far as to say that I believe that the reason for tonsil swelling is actually to force a fast. They swell up to make eating difficult because what the body needs is, this is a really weird thing it's a weird understanding, but food doesn't actually give you immediate energy unless you're eating like low rent sugar, right? But when you eat food, what you're really doing is putting energy and building blocks into the system, and the body has to spend a huge amount of energy to get that, you know, to process it, right? And so the challenge is that when somebody's ill, what they really sometimes need to do is not waste all this energy processing food that they're not going to use for another week or two anyway, and they need a break. And so I think what happens is the taste buds get messed up, the smelling gets messed up, the nose gets plugged up, you can't smell anyway, and then the throat even swells up to make swallowing difficult, so the only thing you can really swallow is water, because that's probably all you're really supposed to be having at that time. So, you know, if your body is just saying, hey, no, I don't want the Alkagizer right now while I have a flu, then don't have it. And incidentally, the other thing is that when you know, and I mean, it's been so long since I've been ill, you know, but I can tell you that when I first got into WildFit, and I didn't follow WildFit as closely as I do now, obviously, and but I would, you know, so I had some exceptions, and I did occasionally, and by the way, I push the limits a lot. You guys know I fly 150,000 miles a year. I'm in a different time zone every few days. I'm on planes all the time. So in theory, I should be sick like regularly, right? I'm not. But in the old days, when I used to feel like a bit of a cold or flu coming on, or even now, I've had it happen occasionally where I come to the end of a long tour and I start to feel that tickle in my throat. Then actually what I'll do at that point is I'll load up on vitamin C rich fruits. Even if I would have rather been in spring at that point, I don't care. I'm going to give myself the vitamin, because it doesn't take a lot of energy to process. It puts a lot of energy in, and it's packed with vitamin C. So I would tend to, if you're concerned about weight, I would tend to go with grapefruit over orange because grapefruit's lower in sugar. But that's what I'll do. I'll just drink down every morning. I'll start my day with a little fresh squeezed grapefruit juice, or even better, I'll eat one.
Got it. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
Really good to see you. I'm so glad. By the way, remind me, you've been quite a, remind me, what was, you lost quite a lot of weight when you did the program. So A, tell me how much that was, and B, tell me what's happened since.
It's been like 32 pounds, and
wow.
Kept it off super easy. I mean, I eat, everything that it's approved. I feel no, sense of, oh my God, I'm depriving myself, but definitely off sugar. I read everything now, and I feel amazing. I mean, obviously these last 2 weeks have been challenging, but other than that, it's like this program is life-changing. I posted it on Facebook. I want friends to go through it. And yeah, I mean, just anybody out there literally on the verge of wanting to do it, maybe, I don't know, you got to do it. It's
all right. You don't have to sell. I appreciate it. But Danny, here's the thing. Have you been booked in to do an interview with me? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay. Andrea, can you make sure that he gets the link? I'm interviewing a few of the people that have done WildFit over the years, and I'm currently underrepresented with men, and so I'd love to include you in the interview schedule.
Got it.
They're going to send you a link where you can book an interview time directly into my calendar, and if you want to do it, join in.
Okay. Thanks, Eric.
Cheers. Thanks very much. Well, everybody, thank you so much. I know we've gone over time, and you guys are still here, and I frankly, if I didn't have this next thing, I'd probably just keep going, but maybe we'll do another. Should we do another one of these? All right. Well, I will tell you, and I think I've kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit, but this is something that we're looking at building in as a regular monthly feature of membership to the WildFit website when we launch that. So, and sometimes by bringing in special guests and that kind of stuff from the paleo community and doctors and that kind of stuff. So we want to give you guys as much community as possible to maintain your results and to spread the word. So thank you guys so much for your fun and playfulness today. We will get to the other questions that people submitted and either answer directly back to those people or publish it to you guys. I don't know what the team's plan for that is, but we will answer the questions. And until next time, see you soon.